I'm sitting here wondering, we might as well get sparkling pink grapefruit juice to sponsor the show. I mean, I think we have to here because we are scalding hot on our mission for 91 days until March 19th to get 1 unit per day, and we are well ahead of pace. Last 5 shows, 68-33, 67.3% against the spread. However you want to look at that, that is roughly 30 units above 500 on the show. And our goal is 1 unit, and that's how we're going to progress here and go through the show. I am Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer at FTN. Follow me at Exit Randle Rant. We come back to you here each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And Saturday, I'm going to have a guest. I'm going to have Justin Perry here from Shot Quality. He's going to do Picture Me as well here on Saturday. So very excited to have the show Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Now, today we have interesting games, a lot of games. Some of them are no picks because they're a little frisky. A lot of teams on vacation. Some have finals. Kids have gone home. Stadiums are empty. So it's a little questionable, some of our picks here, but we have some that we like. We're going to go through the show and get it and listen, we're coming off last night where we actually picked Loyola Marymount and Stan Johnson to cover, and they did cover the 16. So we are rolling. Here we go, folks. Going to go right through it as we always do. Make sure to put those comments in if you have questions as well. I mean, if you can't pick an 0-10 Georgia Southern team, then how could you pass that opportunity up if you're not going to take it? Okay. Georgia Southern 2-9 against the spread. Georgia Southern 0-10. This game's at 6:00. Florida Gulf Coast is 2-8 against the spread. So we have a 2-9 Georgia Southern team against a 2-8 Florida Gulf Coast team against the spread. Something has to give. Charlie Henry's first year here at Georgia Southern. 4 years prior were at Alabama. They've been better their last few games. They've done a nice job here their last few games, and I think today they're going to get their first win. Now, the interesting part about this, which you always have to check, and people don't check it enough, is that it is at a neutral site. This game is not home. Georgia Southern is 0-11. Georgia Southern is playing Florida Gulf Coast. Georgia Southern is playing them in Savannah. But I think they get the win today. Their last few games, they played North Florida close away. They played Tennessee. That game was very frisky in the second half. They almost pulled the cover. And then UNC Wilmington, who you know I love at home, they lost by 5. They are playing better, Georgia Southern. They are getting points. I think at worst it's a coin flip tonight. We are taking Eagles versus Eagles. We're taking the Georgia Southern Eagles plus 3.5 here on a neutral site. I don't know what Notre Dame has done to be favored by 9 points. I don't see it. Citadel likes to shoot the threes, get up and down. I just don't trust Notre Dame to cover such a big spread here. I think it's too many points. We are taking the points with Citadel on the road against Notre Dame. Notre Dame struggled against Georgetown. Notre Dame lost big against Marquette. Yes, they beat Western Michigan at home, but this is a Citadel team that shoots the three well. They've also had some terrible luck. Citadel teams are shooting 80% from the free throw line against them. That is 4th best against the team this year. They are great on the defensive board. Citadel, discipline group, as you would expect under Ed Conroy, 1 rebound and done. So we'll take the Citadel plus 9 here against Notre Dame. Whenever you have New York versus New York games or rivalry games that are in the state, I always like taking the points, and that's what we're doing here with Niagara. Niagara getting 5.5 points at Binghamton. Now, Niagara is coached by Greg Paulus, okay? Their offense has actually been pretty darn good. They're shooting 36% from three-point range. They don't turn the ball over a lot. The struggles are on defense, but their last couple games, they have played well. They have shot it well. They went away to St. Francis and won. They were frisky against Notre Dame in the first game, and they covered for us here. They played well against a good Bucknell team, so they've gone up and down. Now you have Binghamton, who doesn't force turnovers and doesn't shoot free throws well. And I've gone back to that free throw thing over and over again. When you have a team that does not shoot free throws well, it is very difficult to cover at times. This is sort of a rivalry game, proximity rivalry. Look ahead for Binghamton. They have St. Bonaventure away coming up on Friday. So I think it's Niagara. I think it's a close game. I will take the 5.5. Butler minus 10.5 versus Georgetown. We are now in the Big East regular season. We have a great Big East game coming up later tonight as well, which I will talk about. Butler is great at home. Thad Mott has been fantastic. They're 9-2. They beat California in a really tough game where California, well-coached team by Mark Madsen, played well. They blew Buffalo out at home. They beat Texas Tech at home. They beat Boise State on neutral. They beat Penn State. They should have beat Florida Atlantic. They're playing well, and they're competing well. Georgetown's all over the place in Ed Cooley's first year. They had about as good a first half against Coppin State as you could possibly imagine and still found a way to not cover that game. That's questionable. Notre Dame, Georgetown just won away, which I think says more about Notre Dame than anything else. So now we have their second road game here. This is the first game of the Big East Conference that they're playing. I like Butler. I'm laying the points. Ken Palm has it at 13. I will lay the 10.5. I don't like Indiana. I get that Indiana can play well, and I get there's magic at home, but they did lose that game to Kansas, and I don't like the fact that their backcourt is so weak here. Xavier Johnson is questionable for this game again. They cannot make enough shots. They are very big inside. I get that, but they got bullied by Auburn. They got bullied by Kansas. Now, you would expect them to bounce back here in a very comfortable win over Morehead State. Not so fast as Lee Corso says. Preston Spaulding at Morehead State. This team is very competitive. They're 8-3. They shoot 55% from inside the arc. They do turn the ball over, but they've also had bad luck with teams shooting 77.3% from the free throw line against them. They are tough. They've rattled off a bunch of nice wins. Bellarmine, they won away by 13. Austin P, they won away by 11. Chattanooga, they were able to score 87 points on Chattanooga. I think they can score here. I think Indiana is in for a little bit of a regression. I have not liked Indiana. I don't want to get off the scent. They played about as well as possible against Kansas, and they still lost that game. I'm taking Morehead State plus 12.5. People asked about this game because they know my love of Presbyterian. I want to put up there, this is not a pick. But people ask about games all the time, so I want to make sure I cover them. It is very tough to take Furman without Marcus Foster. And Marcus Foster should not be back until January. We should have got the cover against Tulane. They really were a gritty performance. We lost that by a half point in a double overtime. Getting 6.5, lose by 7, double overtime, never easy. I just don't like this game. I don't know which way to go. Presbyterian has struggled. They've been terrible from the free throw line at 63%. So you know I don't like taking teams that can't make free throws. They're also terrible on the offensive boards. I am not picking this game at all. My lean was to go to Furman here, but are they definitely going to cover 14 points without Marcus Foster? I don't know. So it's a stay away for me. This one is not, however. I'm actually taking Michigan. And those who love the show are going to fall out of the chair right now thinking about this. I am on Michigan tonight. This is a neutral court game, this battle. So this game is Michigan versus Florida. And the game is on a neutral. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's part of the Jumpman Invitational that they had last year. They are playing Florida. This game should be very close. I don't know why Florida is favored by 3.5. I don't know what Florida has done this year to be favored by 3.5. They beat Florida State and look super impressive. Then they beat Pittsburgh on a neutral. They lost to Baylor on a neutral. They lost away by Wake Forest by 11, which was a terrible performance. They hung around with Merrimack. They hung around with Richmond, who's not very good. East Carolina on a semi-home game. They almost lost that game. So I don't know why they're favored here. Give me a big game here with Michigan from players like Doug McDaniel. Olivier Nkamhoua, who's a transfer from Tennessee, has played better than I thought he would. You got Juwan Howard back on the bench, gave him a little bit of a spur, and they won by 17 over Eastern Michigan. So I think things are back to normal with Michigan. To me, this is a coin flip game. I think we're getting 3 points of value. If this game was in Florida, maybe I'd be nervous, but it's on a neutral in Charlotte. I'll take Michigan, who's had some big performances. Doug McDaniel has had big performance against Oregon. He's had big performances against St. John's. If Dougie gets hot, watch out. Don't mind a money line play here either. USC is going the wrong way. 17.5 is a lot with Alabama. People expect a bounce back, but this game for USC is tricky because USC does not have great metrics this year. They lost to Gonzaga on a neutral. They lost to Long Beach State at home, which was a brutal loss, and then they got pummeled by Auburn. Now they go to Alabama State away, and it's just a lot of points for a USC team that is not great on offense, that's not great from the line, that's not great on defensive rebounding. And I know Alabama State's not fantastic. They're shooting 38% from inside the arc, but they are going to play defense. They don't turn the ball over. It's just a lot of points. Not one of my top plays here, but I am not at the point where I'm laying 20 points with USC. It's just one of these games like Gonzaga against Mississippi Valley State. There are teams I just don't like laying that many points here. So USC to win by 20 on the road against Alabama State. If this was home, maybe. On the road, it's just a lot of points. Not one of my top plays, but really more indicative of my lack of faith in USC than anything else. No pick on this one. Gardner-Webb plus 5.5 against Chattanooga. You know the deal with Chattanooga. They are the best most volume from three-point range of any team here in America. They shoot it so they can shoot themselves in games or out of games. Gardner-Webb's offense has been brutal. They battle. They're scrappy. I understand that. I just don't want to run the risk that Chattanooga's on tonight. Chattanooga could get up in this game 21-7 and the game is over. So sure, if Chattanooga has an off night, they struggle. That's why I don't like Chattanooga as like a 1-point favorite over a good team. Gardner-Webb really isn't a great team here, so this is a no pick for me. Like Chattanooga, like Gardner-Webb, in this matchup, to me, you're flipping a coin. Is Chattanooga going to be hot? Maybe you look at the live line. If Chattanooga gets up early, then maybe you want to take Chattanooga and think they're onto a hot start here. But I'm staying away from this game. I think there's better options. Don't like FIU. FIU has been involved in a lot of picks that we've taken this year. I don't like them this year. Okay, we're going with Stetson. Stetson, the Hatters, have played well for us with Donnie Jones. They are only 6-5 this year, but they are the number one team, the Stetson Hatters, 82.4% from the free throw line this year. We've seen them play against Milwaukee at a neutral. They won. They beat UCF away, which was fantastic for us. They've played tough games against Houston. Didn't go well, but they played them. Charlotte, Nebraska, Omaha, they're coming off a loss. This is an FIU team that I don't like. They're 4-8 under Jeremy Ballard. They're allowing 60% from inside the arc, 60% to their opponents from inside the arc. And please, it's not like the teams they've played have been like amazing, fantastic. Sure, they played Miami, but they also played Tarleton State. They also played Houston Christian, who they allowed 74 points to. Has 74 points to Houston Christian. So I'll take Stetson here. I'll take Donnie Jones. I think he does a good job. 4.5 points for a team that I think can win the game outright. That's a great free throw shooting team. I will take it, no problem. I'll take Wright State here, minus 12.5 against Ohio. Wright State, I'm going to trust the offense behind Wright State. That's what I like in the horizon here with the Raiders. They are great from the three-point line, 36%. They're great from inside the arc, 56%. They also don't get their shots blocked, and they're also great on the defensive boards. It's a fundamental game. They're coming off 2 losses in their last 3. This is a big game before they start getting into conference play. So they're sitting at 4-6, Wright State. Scott Nagy's a great coach. They've played Indiana. They played Toledo. They played Hofstra. They've played some good teams. I just think they get it right here against Miami, Ohio, who lost to Ohio State, who got blitzed by Davidson by 18 points. I'm going with Wright State here, laying the points in a game that I think they get to 80 to 85 points, and I think that they cover. There's no pick here, and I love JMU. Shout out to my screen-to-screener partner, Gus Kearns, who went to James Madison. You ever notice that James Madison gets a little frisky? James Madison get a little full of themselves. They can get up by 20 and then give 10 points back. It's like the James Madison team, who I love, and I especially love when they're playing a really good opponent. Like, give me JMU against Arizona. Give me JMU against a really good team. They will show up. But when they play substandard teams, sometimes they mess around and they blow it up here and they end up losing the spread. So I'm staying away from this game against Coppin State. Coppin State looked terrible in their first game against Georgetown, the one they just had. And they are the second worst team in KenPom. I mean, 24% from three-point range, 41% from inside the arc. Terrible on the defensive boards, but they do force turnovers. I could easily see James Madison winning this game by 25 points. I could easily see James Madison getting up by 40 points and then having a backdoor cover with Coppin State. Coppin State was getting blown out by Georgetown. They came all the way back. I want nothing to do with this game. I love James Madison. They're 10-0. They're fantastic. They're going to be so live in the tournament. They're fun to watch. However, they get a little frisky with the ball, and they're a little N1 mixtape, so I don't like them laying big spreads. They beat Hampton by 17, Old Dominion by 15. They didn't cover against Buffalo at home. What are we talking about here? No interest in messing around with this game whatsoever. I do like Western Carolina. I don't know why they're getting 4.5 points. Always watch, guys, because sometimes here during December break, teams have sicknesses. Players get ruled out last second. This line makes me think that somebody could be ruled out. But sure as heck, if they're fully loaded, I am taking Western Carolina and the Catamounts here, getting 4.5 against Vanderbilt. They have one of the best backcourts in the country. Vontavious Woolbright, if you have not seen him, is a freaking scoring machine. Trey Jackson, DJ Campbell. This team shoots it. They get up and down the floor. They're great from inside the arc. They're great on defense. They're great on defensive rebounds. They don't turn the ball over. Love this Western Carolina team. Now, they stumbled against Gardner-Webb away. They stumbled against High Point away, but they've been pretty good so far. They beat USC Upstate, who's not great, but they covered that game comfortably, no problem. I think they stick it to Vanderbilt here. I think Western Carolina is one of these mid-major teams like James Madison who really gets up for big opponents. And here you have Western Carolina now playing Vanderbilt, who, again, is a big team in Tennessee, coming off a loss to San Francisco, Texas Tech. They've lost 5 of the last 6. Stackhouse this year, the team is in disarray. They're not playing well. They're allowing 40.8% from three-point range. I think Ezra Manjon, the point guard for Vanderbilt, is back tonight. Looks like he's going to play. He's been out the last couple games, but 4.5 is too much. I like Western Carolina here, plus 4.5. Only for the faint of heart. I like Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart was the favorite in their conference at the beginning of the year. They sure as heck haven't played like it, but they've been better lately. So I'm going to take Sacred Heart here at Albany. They were the favorite under Anthony Latina in the Northeast Conference. Anthony Latina needs that title. He's looking for it. He has a veteran team here, but they have struggled. They've lost 6 games in a row, but they played well at Providence. They were competing in St. John's before the game got away from them. I think this is a good spot. If you just look at records and you look at 4-8 Sacred Heart going against Albany, who's 6-5. You're going to say, oh, it's only 3.5 points. I'm going to lay it. Well, Albany's coming off a loss on a neutral at Temple. Albany lost to Drexel. 3.5 is too many points. I like Sacred Heart. They do the 5-in, 5-out thing, and I really like Anthony Latina as a coach. So even though they have struggled in the non-conference, they were competitive in their last game. I think they right the ship. I think they start playing well, and Nico Gillette should be the best player on the floor yet again. Rivalry game, no one is surprised by this. Winthrop at South Carolina. I think we're overrating South Carolina a little bit. You know, all teams are going to regress. Even Arizona regressed there in the game against Purdue. So when you see a team hot, you expect regression. They are 9-1. They were 7-0, South Carolina, before they played Clemson away, and they lost that game by 5. Since then, they played East Carolina away, who they should have pummeled. They won by 6. Then they played Charleston Southern at home, who they really should have pummeled, and they won by 4. I think they're going the wrong way. I think we're selling we're buying at the high point here for South Carolina and going to get some value with the Winthrop team. Mark Prosser does a great job. They are strong. They like to score. They played well at Xavier. They kept it close, but they ended up succumbing there. But before that, they beat Coastal away. They beat Queens. They beat Little Rock. And in those games, here are the points that Winthrop has scored: 90, 88, 85. I think they score. I know South Carolina likes to slow it down, but I think they were able to score, and I think they cover the 10.5 points. I like them here. Let's get some comments. You get some comments, some questions. Let's get these things going here. Austin, Georgia Southern. Yeah, fighting for the first win, but it's a neutral site in Savannah. I told you about that. I like Georgia Southern there. Yeah, you got it. You got it, Austin. Sorry about that. Do you like Georgetown plus 10? I don't, Don. I'm not a Georgetown guy. They played well at Notre Dame, but I think playing at Butler is a completely different story. Thad Matta is a better coach right now and has better resources than Ed Cooley does. I think Ed Cooley will get it going for Georgetown, but this is still year one. It's a transition period. Who is Cincinnati laying? Oh, yeah. Colby, we'll get to that game. I have it coming up. Don, do you like Michigan yet? Player props, not here yet. I will put them in the tracker, Austin, so make sure you check the tracker later. I'm taking Virginia. And I've been very critical of Virginia, but this is a Virginia spot. Virginia, this line was a pick'em. When it was a pick'em, I was taking Memphis. It's not a pick'em anymore. It's actually 3.5. Memphis is going to be ready to go at home and want to prove themselves against Virginia. The problem is Virginia does well in these games. First of all, they're going to control the pace well. They're number 1 in the country in effective field goal percentage defense. They're number 7 at holding opponents just 26% from three-point range. They're number 9 at holding opponents 42% from inside the arc. And these are the type of teams that Virginia does well against with Reese Beekman. And while I'm very critical of Ryan Dunn, he is a superior defender. I expect McNeely to be hot from three-point range. If this game was a pick'em, I would take Memphis. I think 3.5 is too much. It's a little too much for me for a well-coached Virginia team on the road here against Memphis. Memphis has Vanderbilt coming up at home. That's a rivalry game. Memphis just beat Clemson. Memphis beat Texas A&M. Memphis beat VCU. They're getting hot. I think Virginia is the type of team that gives Memphis trouble. Memphis is not going to struggle with Clemson. Memphis is not going to struggle with Texas A&M. Virginia, down screen, back screen, patience, pull it out. We don't fast break. Oh, you fouled us. We're going to make our free throws, even though they haven't been great this year. I think it's too many points. If it gets back down to 1.5, it's that easy. I think it's a play on Memphis. But right now I'm taking Virginia. I'm going to take the better coach here with UNC Greensboro. I like High Point, and High Point covered for us against Georgia. Gotta love Mike White, right? Fade Mike White's always one of our favorite things. But High Point still does not force turnovers. Their metrics are not great. And UNC Greensboro, coached by Mike Jones, always does a solid job. They're coming off a loss against Marshall. Before that, they were 8-1, so they're coming off only their second loss of the year. The first one was at Vanderbilt by 4 early in the year when Vanderbilt had their regular group of people. I like UNCG here. I like them in this spot. They're great on defense. They're shooting 38% from three-point range, and they don't turn the ball over. They don't beat themselves. Close game, coin flip game. I'll take UNCG. Tread carefully with this one. I'm going to go with the Ivy. I have to tell you, this is not one of my favorite picks. I'm going to lay the points here. I love Carm Massarello, and I love Siena, and I'm waiting for them to get hot. But, God, they are atrocious. Look at Siena's metrics this year. They're the third worst team in KenPom. Siena playing at a slow pace, 310th in the country. And what do they do with that slow pace? They are third worst in turnover percentage, so they turn the ball over a ton, not good against Cornell. They are third worst in three-point shooting, 24%, and they're shooting 55% from the free throw line. So how can I take a Siena team that can't make free throws, can't make threes, and by the way, which is even more damning, Teams are only shooting 66% from the free throw line against Siena this year. So they're getting good luck. Imagine if teams are making their free throws. 2-8 Siena. I love Coach Carm Massarello. I just think Cornell is really good. Now, this is a little frisky because it's a lot of points. It's not like Cornell wins games by a lot of points on the road. They beat Lehigh by 6. They beat Fordham after being up big by 5. They let them back in the game. They beat Lafayette away by 8. I'm not saying that this is a slam dunk, but I am going to lay the points just because Siena has been so bad. And I love Coach Carm Massarello. If I get it wrong, Coach, I apologize to you, but I'm going to lay the points. A team that is absolutely on fire is Indiana State. If you're not aware how good Indiana State is, then why don't you get ready in about a week, because they're going to play Michigan State, and they'll show you how good they are. They're right now number 53 in KenPom. They are top 25 in the country at pace. They are number 1 in effective field goal percentage. They're number 4 in three-point shooting. They're shooting 41% from three-point range. They're number 5 inside the arc, 61.8%. Josh Schertz has done an amazing job with Indiana State. They just can't stop. The only game they lost was an away game at Alabama, which, by the way, they dropped 80 on. This is a big game against Tennessee State. You want to say it's a look-ahead spot against Michigan State, that's fine, but it's 11 days from now. If this Michigan State game was 3 days from now, I could get there. They score. They're tough at home. They beat Ball State on neutral by 11. They beat Bradley away by 8, which is really tough. Southern Illinois, they can score, beat them by 30. Toledo, this team is good. Tennessee State, on the other hand, can't make threes, can't stop the threes, not good on the boards, and just get blocked way too much here. So I'm laying the points first half, Indiana State and Tennessee full game as well. I think Cincinnati bounces back against Merrimack. Merrimack usually gets their pace and they slow teams down, but Cincinnati has been pretty good at scoring consistently at home. And even against Bryan, a game that was really close for a while here, they pulled away late and ended up winning that game by 32 points. They've been good at home against substandard teams. They played Detroit Mercy at home. They won by 32. They played Eastern Washington at home, who's pretty good. They beat them by 12. Northern Kentucky, good Northern Kentucky team at home, beat them by 24. Georgia Tech, they beat by 35 at home. They're pretty good, Cincinnati, and their scoring is consistent. And the biggest issue I have here is Cincinnati under Wes Miller is one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They are number 2 in the defensive boards, and they are number 16 in the offensive boards. Let's flip that around on Merrimack. Merrimack is 10th worst on the defensive boards and 300th on the offensive boards. There's just too big a discrepancy on rebound. All I need is an effort from Cincinnati. They should bring an effort coming off their loss to Dayton. That's why I like them here as well. I'll take Queens College plus 2.5 against Mercer. No one knows Queens College. They have no idea who it is, and no one likes to even follow them. But Queens College has been pretty competitive this year. They're in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Royals, and they're great at defending the three. So they limit their opponents, and Mercer is a team that wants to score from three-point range and can get those points up. I like Queens here getting 2.5 in North Carolina. They're playing a Mercer team. This Queens team played App State in a neutral, and App State was just scalding hot from outside. They couldn't do anything about that. But they played well against Gardner-Webb, and they won. They played Fairfield on a neutral one. They played High Point, who's not easy at home, and they played well. They're going on the road to Mercer here. I don't trust Mercer. Mercer's coming off 2 wins. I think the line's too low. A lot of people are going to take Mercer. I think this Queens team is legit. They've played some good opponents, and they've played competitive, and I don't trust a Mercer team at home that shoots 63% from the free throw line. They don't stop the threes, and they don't make free throws well. That's kind of a bad combination. No pick here. I like Central Connecticut State. They got the backdoor cover for Boston College against us. Northeastern is getting better under Bill Cohen, who's been there for years. They were sloppy against Seton Hall, and they were able to cover when I went to that game. I don't have a feel for this game. I kind of like Central Connecticut, but not enough. Northeastern is tough at home. They play well. They played well against Virginia. No feel. Not picking this game. Scott Cross covers. Scott Cross covers. 5-1 this year, Scott Cross against the spread. And this is a situational spot against Mississippi. Let's take a look at Mississippi this year. Fantastic job by Chris Beard in his first year at Mississippi. They are 10-0. Now, we always want to be contrarian and go against the hot team and go for the team that really hasn't played well. They're 10-0. They have Southern Miss coming up, so that's sort of a rivalry game on a neutral. This is a very flat spot. They played UCF away, 2-point win. California on a neutral, came back and won that game. Now they're playing Troy. And what I like about this Troy team is they are great on the offensive boards, and Mississippi is not good on the defensive boards. Scott Cross is a very good coach. Ever since he was wrongly dismissed from Texas Arlington, I have followed him. My partner, Gus, we love him as well at the Screen Screener podcast. Huge fan of him. They are top 10 in the country in offensive rebounding, and they're also shooting 37% from three-point range. Now, they don't make their free throws at 66%. But this, to me, with Mississippi playing at a slow pace, 10-0, flying high, nobody knows who Troy is. It's a wooden horse. No one cares. Here comes Scott Cross. 12.5 points. I like them here. They covered for us against Dayton. They played well against other teams. They lost in double overtime away against Oregon State. This is a good matchup here for Troy. Offensive rebounding versus the one weakness that Mississippi has shown so far, and that's defensive rebounding in a game that Mississippi should play at a slow pace. I like Scott Cross. I like Troy getting 12.5. New Mexico had their big game. They turned the ball over way too much. I'm going with Stephen F. Austin at home. I love Stephen F. Austin. They force turnovers. They play an aggressive style. They're number 11 in the country in offensive turnovers. Now, they give the ball up a lot, but I don't think New Mexico State can do much about that. New Mexico State under Jason Hooten took over a horrific situation, and they were very, very competitive against New Mexico. Played really well. They played well against New Mexico back on December 2nd. That game was away. Then they played them at home, and they lost by 1. It's the law of efforts here. It's the law of efforts. How many times they lost an overtime game to Fresno? They lost an overtime game to Louisville. They lost away to New Mexico by 34. But then they bounced back, and they still lost by 1. Now they're playing Stephen F. Austin, a team at home who's going to turn them over, a team at home that's very aggressive, that is coming off 2 losses to Louisiana Tech and Wyoming. Then it has also run into some bad luck with teams shooting 73.5% from the free throw line against them. New Mexico State isn't doing that. I like them to win comfortably. If you are not aware of what goes on here with this Southern Illinois team and how great they have an individual player who's just fantastic, you need to hop on board. I love what Xavier Johnson has done here for Southern Illinois. Just a prolific scorer. Love what he does. Loved him here, watching him against James Madison. He brought that team back. They were down 20 in the first half. He is a lethal scorer. Tough loss at home to Austin Peay. Tough loss to Wichita State away by 1. I think they get right here. I've seen North Dakota State. I'm not impressed with them. They have to shoot threes to stay in the game. They don't shoot the free throws well. They're not good from inside the arc, and they allow 37.4% from outside. I think this is a game that Southern Illinois can get away, and they can hide and move forward here. So I do like them in this spot. Southern Illinois, Xavier Johnson. God, if you could find a prop out there, grab it, because I think he's hanging 30 tonight against North Dakota State, who, by the way, North Dakota State has a game coming up at home against South Dakota. Rivalry game, look ahead. You know the drill. I don't like Loyola Chicago all year long. I've been fading them. There's not a lot in this pick. So if you don't want to take this pick, I have no problem with it. I am going with Charleston Southern here at Loyola Chicago. I just don't like Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago is a team that was built on Porter Moser's vision that has not continued that vision under Drew Valentine. They are not shooting the 3 well, only 34%. They are not great on the offensive boards. They are allowing teams to shoot 38% from three-point range, and they're only making 70% of their free throws. I don't like this team. We faded them against South Florida. We hit it. We faded them against Tulsa. We hit it. They somehow beat Harvard, which I still can't get over. They got us on that one. But prior to that, they were dead and buried against Boston College. Boston College gave up 12 consecutive points with 2 minutes left. We got the cover against Creighton. All those games, Eastern Illinois we got, and we almost got an outright win by New Orleans at home. New Orleans, an 18-point underdog. Don't like Loyola Chicago. If you want some deep analysis on Charleston Southern, this is not the place to come. This is a fade of Loyola Chicago, a team that we faded all year long. I'm taking Providence plus 4.5 against Marquette. Big East opener. It's no longer the Dunk, right? I think they changed the name. It's not I forget what it is. They did change the name. It used to be the Dunk, but Providence plays very well at home, and I think they're going to do so again. I've been impressed with Marquette, and I like the way Marquette plays, but Providence can have some big moments here. This game is now, and I just want to get the name right. Sorry about this. Yeah, the AMP, the Amica Mutual Pavilion. That's it. I like Providence getting 4.5. Bryce Hopkins last year, remember, in that double overtime game against Marquette, had 23 and 20, I believe. 23 and 20. There's a weakness inside. They should be able to attack them inside Marquette. I love Icodaro. I love everything about Marquette, but they can do some things to limit Cam Jones. I'm concerned about Devin Carter, who's questionable for this game. So again, if Devin Carter is out, I'm going to be a little more concerned about this pick, but Josh Adoro can do some stuff. Jaden Pierre, the whole crew, ticket gains as well. I like Providence getting 4.5, provided that they are at full strength here. If we don't get Carter, tonight. This is a little frisky, maybe a stay away. Last two games people have asked me about. I'm not picking this game. I like Nicholls State, but Maryland sometimes can get hot, and Nicholls State is really not great offensively, so I have no pick for Maryland, Nicholls State. And the last one, do you know this is the first game that Middle Tennessee State has played on the road all year? Very odd. Normally I fade them, but St. Mary's has not been a great cover team right now. They stop and they stare and they look and they don't force the issue. And the big man inside Saxon is not great with his back to the basket. 15 is a lot. It is a lot of points. It could be 15, 15 and a half. So this is a no pick for me as well. A couple other comments we'll get to, and then we'll get out of here. Yeah, I think it's more Merrimack is bad. It's not that Cincinnati is great here, Ben. It's just they're great on the boards. And I think as long as they bring a decent effort, they should be able to really stick Merrimack as well. Coppin State, MSU are worse than Siena Campbell. They are. Siena, let's just think about that. There's only two teams, and it's Coppin State and Mississippi Valley State who are worse than Siena. That says a lot here. 13 now for Troy at some books. I like Scott Cross, Ben. I do. I think he covers, and I get it. If this was Mississippi coming off a loss, I would understand it. If this was Mississippi in a different situation, I like Troy. I think they compete. If they get in foul trouble, that's the great equalizer. We always don't want injuries. We don't want players ruled out. We don't want foul trouble. But I think Scott Cross covers here as well. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone watching here. Always appreciate it. Today, tomorrow, and Saturday, Justin Perry coming here to bring us some insight as well. So as always, check the models, support. Let's get to the window. We're going to keep it hot. And don't forget, guys, we have been rolling here. Scalding hot so far. Great things going on. We want to push this. Right now, we are at 67.3% against the spread. We want to get over to 70% here after these games today. Let's get to the window. As always, Mike Randle on X at Randle Red. Appreciate you. FTN Bets, only place to be.